Welcome to Dennison Bertram from DappHero, who will talk about building front ends for Web 3.0. Dennison, good morning.
Hey, morning everyone.
New York represent! Whoop whoop!
Hey, Dennison, good morning.
Hi.
Good morning. How is everyone?
Sleepy.
I was gonna give a bit of a. Can you see me? Am I like well seeable?
Yeah, we can.
Yes,
Actually,
I like your green coordinated outfit.
Yeah, that's a nice
Thanks.
link right there. I'm very jealous.
I'm trying to stay coordinated. Let's get that in. All right. So, hello everyone. How are you? So, I was going to talk a little bit today about DappHero and what we're working on DappHero. Originally, I was going to do a kind of a workshop tutorial, which I can still do. Maybe I'll do it a little bit less technical and make it a little bit faster, so I don't just bore you with an hour of like code. Watching the NFTs, I thought I'd show something cool that we've been working on, a way to like interact with NFTs when you're connecting them to your website. So to give an overview really quickly on what DappHero is a tool that allows you to connect your website to the blockchain, right? And the idea is we're trying to solve the last mile problem of blockchain, because blockchain's been around for 10 years or so, and in the early days of like Bitcoin, people would say, hey, with blockchain you're going to be able to have a donation button on your website, and people will just like click on it and they'll be able to donate money to you. Right? 10 years later, there are still no donation buttons. And a big part of that, in my opinion, is that blockchain is really hard to use, right? Like, to actually connect blockchain to your website is really difficult. So even though we have a lot of great developer tooling, even though we have a lot of great infrastructure, that kind of final little piece of actually getting it from there to here is a bridge too far. And what we like to talk about is, the whole distributed future is sort of like a bridge, right? That sort of like is built to the future. But by the time you get almost to the other side, you realize that the bridge isn't yet finished, right? And it's just, you can't get across. So what DappHero is trying to do is DappHero is trying to solve this problem by making blockchain super easy to use in your website, right? So you can just like put it into your website. What that means is that we are abstracting away all the sort of complicated technologies behind, front-end development, and allowing you to just build using using HTML. So what that means is all you need to do is you just tag your elements with HTML properties and characteristics, and you're automatically connected to the blockchain, you're automatically connected to smart contracts, you're automatically connected to NFTs. And that doesn't require you to do anything more than just tagging your elements, right? So the basic process is, and I'll show, actually, let me get into my presentation. This is the first part of a workshop. Maybe we won't do the whole workshop. Instead, I'll just sort of like show you so that it's not so technical. But let me just pull it up, and I'm going to try and share my screen. Let's see how that goes. Okay, now I lost you. Hold on a second. My keyboard is disconnected, so now I can't do anything.
Sharing your screen is made to crash your entire computer.
Yeah, that's been my experience in life. Oh my gosh, where am I? Okay, here I am. All right, I'm gonna try sharing my screen.
When you share your screen, if you click again on the camera, like we can see you at the same time. So it's a nice.
Yeah, that is nice actually. Okay, I'm gonna try and share just this little window. Let me see what happens if I click play. Do not see anybody. Okay, well, I'm gonna just show you the presentation in this little window. Can you see this?
Yes.
Oh, Fanny didn't sound. Yes, it's good. Okay.
Sorry, I was I don't know where to talk or where I'm muted, so like sign language.
Yeah.
Go ahead, we see you.
All right. So I'm not going to do this full screen because as soon as I do it full screen, I lose control of my computer. So basically, I was going to originally talk about smart contracts, and I'll go through that really quickly. And then I'm going to show you something really cool that sort of will follow on what Nate was just talking about with NFTs to show you how this sort of applies to NFTs. So in our case, if you're going to connect to a smart contract, what you do is you essentially create a DappHero account. You have a web page with you have HTML where you want to just tag your elements. You have a smart contract deployed on Ethereum, and you have something like MetaMask, right? And you can use these things together. So the overview of the steps that you need to take is you sign up at DappHero, you create a new project, you add smart contracts to your project, and then you tag your HTML elements. So let me show you what that process looks like. I'm going to try and share again, a new screen. Okay. I have a wireless keyboard too, so sometimes it just disconnects on me. All right, so what you would do is you go to the DappHero website, you go to login. You might have to sign up. I should already be signed up. I certainly hope so. Our interface is going to be changing the next couple of weeks. We have a new version that's coming out soon. So hopefully by the middle of May, we're going to have a different kind of interface, a little bit simpler. So what we would do is we would create a new project, and you'd give your project a name. So in this case, we would say like, this tutorial is based around connecting to the wrapped ETH contract. So we'll just call it wrapper. And then you can add an image. So we would say wrapped. Unfortunately, we're taking away this feature, the picture, in the next version. So you only get it now. So you're welcome to your homepage where you are able to create your project. And basically, the way DappHero works is you get a script tag up here. Is this big enough for everyone? I'm always afraid that people can't see. Yeah. Okay. So what you do is you get this script tag up here, which when you click on it, gets copied to your clipboard. And this script tag is what goes into your HTML, and that actually loads the DappHero engine into your browser when a user comes to your website. That means that your website can be generated and hosted anywhere. It can be on a Raspberry Pi, it can be on Amazon Cloud Server, it can be on Squarespace, Webflow, you can be hosting it yourself, you can be running it locally on your own machine. It really gives you a lot of flexibility to connect blockchain to your website anywhere it is, because it's running inside the client, not inside the server. Right, so what we would do is, and we would go over to, I'm going to use Glitch as an example, because Glitch is pretty cool. And what you would do is you add this is a project I've already created, but you add this script tag that we just saw, this script tag, right? You add this script tag into your HTML, right? And now the DappHero engine is going to load in your website. So then what you want to do is you want to add smart contracts. We have a number of like built-in features already, which allow you to get things like the current user who's connected to your website, or the current status of the Ethereum network. But the really cool thing is being able to access smart contracts. So what you want to do is you want to add a smart contract to your project. To do that, you go to smart contracts and you would go to add custom contract. We do have some other features here, which is connect to existing contracts. We are going to take this feature away because we realize that we are not able to validate existing contracts constantly because people may update them and change them. And that presents kind of like a security risk for us. So what you would do is you would add a custom contract. In our case, for the demo, we're actually connecting to wrapped ETH. And that's sort of like a DeFi example because a lot of DeFi contracts use wrapped ETH. And the idea behind it is that you send Ethereum in and you get an ERC20 token back that represents your Ethereum. And that is what's commonly used in a lot of DeFi projects. So to do that, we need the contract address, name, we'll just call it wrapped ETH. we need a contract address, the contract network, and the ABI. Right? So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to go to EtherScan to find this information. And I already have the link for the EtherScan contract. So this is the wrapped ETH contract, right? And we can see when you go to read contract, you can read some information about it, but you can get balance, right? So let's just check my balance really quickly. So I have my address, I pop it in, I query, and I have this many way of wrapped ETH. All right, well, that's great. So what we want to do, though, is we want to go to the actual contract itself. Where is it here? Click contract. And we're going to want to get the address. That is the address here. We add that into our contract address. Then the contract network is mainnet. This is a mainnet contract, so we select mainnet. And then we want to get the contract ABI. Right? And so to get the ABI, we go down here to contract ABI, and then we click this button, which copies it. So now we pop that into our ABI, and we click create contract. And now this contract is going to be loaded into the user's web page when they load your website that you've created. And that's all you have to do. So if we go back over to our HTML, now when this script tag is run, it's going to go out, it's going to get the contract, get the ABI, create an instance, put that into your project, and now it's available, right? So let's just show you really quickly what the final result will be, and then I'll just walk you through what the HTML looks like. We won't do the HTML line by line, but I'll show you the pieces that go into it so that I can also then have a little bit of time to show you something else that's cool. So if we go to see the example, we see that the final result is wrapped ETH, a button that says connected, shows my current address, my ETH balance, the smart contract that we're connected to, which is wrapped Ether, and then my wrapped Ether balance, right? So what I can do in this contract, and I'm going to get this started now because it's going to take probably a minute or two for the transaction to confirm. What I'm able to do is I'm able to wrap ETH. So I'm going to wrap half an Ether. So I'll click wrap here. And I don't know if you can see the MetaMask notification that pops up, but I've clicked it, and we have a transaction has started down here in the lower right-hand corner. Maybe I can zoom in here, right? So let's let that go ahead and do its stuff and go ahead and confirming. And let's show you how this is actually working. So the first thing we saw was this button up here that says connected. That button is a button that basically allows your users to give you permission to access your MetaMask. Currently, DappHero works with MetaMask. We are working on support for any provider. That's actually very complicated, but that should be coming. That support should be coming soon for other types of wallets. And what we have here is we have a button that has a feature of network and has an enable property of true, and it just says enable Web3. And that's this button, right? And when it's loaded, it actually will tell you whether or not you're connected. When you click on it, it'll actually ask you permission to connect to your wallet. Then to show us your address, you simply have this span here. Oh, I think something confirmed. You have this span here, which just has a feature of user and the property of address, right? And that is what gives us our address. Oh, if you notice the transaction confirmed, and we've now upped my wrapped Ether balance, right? So now we've wrapped my balance. To be able to get my balance,
you should do a little cling cling.
Oh yeah, like yeah, that's a nice idea.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
Oh, now you can see me down in the corner too. Okay, great. That was the button you meant. I didn't see that button before. All right, so then to get the user's balance, right? So now what we do is we have a thing called method instances. When we deal with smart contracts, we're always connecting to the particular function on a smart contract that we want to access, right? So in this case, if we wanted to connect to something like my balance, my wrapped Ether balance, all we have to do is, let's find the one that we're connecting to. We create an instance of that method, right? And I've organized these instances down here, and I'll share with you the link to this project so you can take it and play with it yourself. But basically, that here is balance of. That's the method name that I'm connecting to, and that's what's actually available on the smart contract itself. Let me scroll up. Contract. All right, read contract. So balance of, we saw that previously. So if I put in my address, oops, that's not my address. So if I put in my address, quick query, now remember before it was a very small balance. Now it's still a small balance, but a little bit bigger, right? So that method name here corresponds with the method on the smart contract that you're accessing. And all you need to do to access it is give it these properties. It's a custom contract. The contract name is wrapped ETH. The method I want to do is balance of. And then we give it a method ID, which links it to all the other places on our web page where we want to access this information and display it to the user. We also give it a characteristic of auto invoke. That means when the page loads, it automatically loads this piece of information. And we give it auto clear, which is false, which means that we don't clear it. So to do something like create a transaction down here when we wrapped, what we do is we do something similar. We create another method instance, which is, let's see, deposit. We just create a div here, and this is the method instance. We create a div. We call it wrapped ETH, deposit, and we give it a method ID of true. That links it, if we go up here to 2, we link it to our input methods for this custom contract, right? So we have an input field, which has the method ID of 2, and the input name is ETH value. ETH value is a special term that you'll see in our documentation. We have really great docs. That'll explain everything and how to do this. But so if you want to reference any of this, go to the docs.DappHero.io. But basically that tells us that we are going to be sending money to this smart contract method. And then we have a button that allows you to invoke that method, right? And all you have to do here is you give it the method ID again of 2, and you give it an invoke property of true. When it runs, it looks like this, and it's already working, right? So once again, you can wrap 3 ETH. I have the MetaMask thing come up, and I start a transaction, right? So it's really simple for you to write a website using HTML that connects to smart contracts without really having any overhead, any sort of complexity that you would normally have with something like JavaScript or React or Vue or anything like that. Oh, and you see my balance updated, right? So that's a really, really quick overview. Actually, I'm going to take off my sweater because I'm super hot.
I have a question. Oh, can you hear me without your? No.
Bitcoin. You know, you
Can
gotta
you hear
love
me?
all the
Oh, no.
coins. Yeah, I can hear you now because I just put my.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I realized I was asking you a question, but you didn't have your info.
Oh yeah, I didn't have my head. Yeah.
No, I was wondering, like, I mean, you took and used the DeFi example. What was the original idea? Like, where did it come from? Like, did you see yeah, like what type of issues have you seen in the field to come up with DappHero?
So basically, to do this, right, to connect to a contract, this is a simple ERC20 token, but to connect to it and get that working in your website is extremely difficult, right? Like you need at least a minimum of 200 lines of code just to get started with like a Create React app to be able to connect to a smart contract and use it, right? And that's a really big ask for a lot of people. And to do something like, for example, connecting to NFTs, right, and enable NFTs inside your website, that's a really complicated task, right? Like to be able to see, like, just, you know, if there's a you know, smart contract for some sort of like NFT out there, to be able to connect to it and then show the NFTs on your website, that's really hard, right? All of these things have been really difficult. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to make Ethereum more accessible to just normal people, right? So if you're trying to design something and you're a product manager and you use a tool like Webflow, this works in tools like Webflow. This works in tools like Squarespace. This really brings the availability of using blockchain and Ethereum to an enormous audience, right? And that was the big part of the thinking behind it. How do we make this faster? How do we make this simpler? And I can show you another example of that, because while I was watching the last few minutes of Nate's presentation, I was thinking, oh, maybe I would show you folks like our next feature that's coming in the next couple weeks. And I actually built it in, the last 5 minutes. I mean, it's not impressive or anything, but in the last 5 minutes of the presentation, I put it together really quickly just to show you. So if you'd be curious, I could show you that. So let me.
Well, you said too much now.
Now I said too much, right? So let me stop sharing, and now I'm going to share again.
And do you see DappHero being a like a library of tools like that, that you can kind of pick and choose, or what's your vision on that?
Our vision is very much being kind of like a Squarespace for blockchain, for Web3, right? So we want to build out more recipes for people to be able to build things that they already are interested in. So personal tokens, NFTs, DeFi applications, these sorts of things. We want to enable them really simply and easily for people. So we're really looking at being more like a Squarespace for Web3. But under the hood, the tech behind DappHero is really powerful. So at the same time, for people who are currently building in things like WordPress, server-side rendered applications, applications on top of things like Shopify, this is really powerful because you can bring in all of Ethereum without actually having to change your code base at all. Right? You just add a script tag, and now everything is available to you. So I'm going to show you something really quickly that is kind of cool. Hopefully it works, because I just threw it together right now. Basically, what we have here is we are going to show a list of NFTs from a contract, right? There's no styling, so don't get excited about styling, right? So normally to do that, you would have to create a React application, right? You'd have to create some sort of state management for dealing with, connecting to a smart contract, an NFT smart contract. You have to create the entire structure for the application for fetching these tokens, for displaying the tokens, for all these different types of things, right? And that would be really complicated. It'd be way more than 200 lines of code, right? Nate was talking about the complexity of like building with NFTs. This is not, a trivial kind of experience until now. So if you look at this code here, right?
I did excited. Yeah!
Right? So if you
the
look
excitement and like the virtual thing.
Yeah, the virtual excitement. There we go. So if you see here, if you look at my HTML, right, like this is a really simple web page. And what we have here is we have that button that I showed you before, which enables Web3, that asks for permission and then connects to the browser. And then what we're doing is we're getting a list of NFTs from a contract, right? So what we have is we have a feature NFT. We have a tag ID, which is in this case 35, and that links to the sort of child element. This is a parent element, which basically wraps the pieces that you want to have related to NFTs. This is our contract address, so we just give it the contract address. This is the contract address for Block Cities, which is a really awesome project, NFT project. It's like crypto kitties with buildings, and now it's like Sim City with like NFTs. It's really awesome. I love it. And then basically, now that we define our parent instance here, let me just give me a little bit better formatting there. Now that we've defined that parent instance.
If it's gonna do what I think, it's gonna do, I'm gonna have to give you a virtual hug, because we're talking about the last link, and this is so true for anything visual, and NFTs are like like the perfect example of that.
It's so difficult, right? So what we do is now we have, this is what's called the children element, and basically it's just the class is it's an item, it's an asset item. So what we're going to do here is inside this parent, we're going to display a number of asset items, right? So if we just click show, well, we already have it listed, right? And these are, what are they? 5 buildings from the Block Cities contract, right? Oh wait, you can't see that because it's in a different window. Let me go see it in a different window here.
Well, you said to not get excited, so we were like, okay, maybe that's what he meant, and that's not exciting.
Yeah, don't get excited, right? Wait, no. So now.
Oh, this is so cool.
Yeah, and this feature is really cool because this feature actually doesn't require your user to have a Web3 wallet to actually use. As long as you don't need any information from them, like their address, this will actually work without even having a Web3 wallet. So this allows you to just instantly show and interact with NFTs like just in a couple moments, right? This is all done in this line of code, right? This isn't even code. These are just HTML tags, right? So we have 5 of them, but if we wanted 10 buildings from that contract, now we have 10. I don't know where the others are. Right now we have more of them. I think I've.
Well, maybe you don't have 10. Maybe you only have 8. No.
No, I think there's probably 10. I think it's just that like I'm not a Flexbox genius. I wrote this in like a couple minutes. Maybe that'll fix it. Okay, so now we can actually scroll and we see, oh, we do have 10, right? There would be a way to make my Flexbox wrap that around. And then you could even go and see like 20 of them.
So what about you want to show things from this project and other project? Is it just replicating with the different?
Yeah, well, all you need here is the whatchamacallit, the address of that contract, right? So if we look at ERC 721 top tokens, I don't know, Gods Unchained. What's the address of that? Right. This is the Gods Unchained contract, right? So let's just replace this. And now we have the Gods Unchained tokens.
But it's a general contract, right? So it's like showing you any from this like project, right? Like it's not showing necessarily. I mean, it's not showing your like the ones you own, pretty much.
So you can do that too, right? Now to do that, we just need to make some small changes. I'm doing this live, so if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But basically, let's get my address really quickly. And let's call this instead, let's comment out this line. Or actually, let's just delete this line for now. And let's do data DH property asset owner address equals. So this should, it might not, let's say. All right, so now we've loaded all the NFTs that I actually own. Well, only the first 5, right? So we could let's see some more of what I own. Hopefully I don't own anything ridiculous. Right?
It's okay, we're gonna see all the cat NFTs that you own.
Exactly. So now you see my marble cards, some of my ENS domains, right? And you can filter that too. So let's find what are marble cards. Marble NFT.
Okay, you can filter by
Right. You can filter by the contract. So let's say you have a website that you just want to do like a trophy room for this user's like marble cards, and you don't want to show everything else that they have. So there's a filter. I'm trying to figure out what the filter is. I think all we need to do, and this is coming out soon, so DH property.
Well, hurry, because I need it.
I know it's going to be fun. We're excited.
No, but it's really something that, especially for the digital artists who've been working on all the, super rare and all the blockchain-based platforms like minting NFTs and using Mint-Base as well. But they do want at the end of the day, it's their work, so they don't want to just share their page on super rare or on Mint-Base. They do want to have them on their on their own website. And on the other end of the spectrum, to develop the market of collectors, like you also need to give people ways to display that where they want. You know, it's like right now, like the NFTs I have and I'm very proud of, it's like I show them on my Trust wallet and be like, hey, look, it's tiny. Like, can you see it? And
Exactly.
and people want to show it on their smart TV and everything, but it's, you know, it's not that easy. But if you have a way to at least show it on the website, show it as a gallery, like, you know, that's like just one step away from showing like a rotating sample of your collection is what
Exactly.
you want to do. So I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I
and
took
this-
over a little bit the workshop for my own purpose.
No. Like you make a great point. And actually, we haven't tested it on a smart TV, but this should work on a smart TV. And as you asked for to filter, we just provided the contract address, and now we filtered just for the marble cards that I own, right?
Yeah.
So again, you know, the amount of code. This is all we're doing is we're just adding tags to HTML elements to allow you to list NFTs or, you know, interact with NFTs. There's a few more features here, which I'm probably not going to get the tags correct because we're just finalizing the interface for it. But basically what you can do is you can show a link of NFTs, and then you can allow users to click on one, and then it'll take them to a page that shows just that single NFT. So actually you'll have dynamic functionality in this, where you're able to access not just a list of NFTs, but also single NFTs. And you'll be able to do that as defined by also the URL bar. So you can just pass in parameters in the URL bar, and that'll actually allow you to generate DappHero powered NFT pages without needing to like create any sort of like custom code for it. So yeah, that's kind of the new feature that's coming. I wish my design skills were a little bit better here, but let me unshare. Yeah, so that's kind of like an overview of like what we're doing. You can currently use DappHero to connect to any smart contract. You can interact with anything that's already deployed. So that means, you know, you can build things with DeFi, you can build things with, you know, independent smart contracts. Now coming in May, we'll have support fully for NFTs. So that'll allow you to do anything you want in terms of like viewing NFTs, lists, filtering them for individual ones. You can build trophy rooms, things like that. In the future, we'll give you the ability to mint as well, if that's something that people want. You can already mint NFT tokens using DappHero. You just connect to the NFT contract that you want to connect to as you would a normal custom contract, and you can mint just like that. But we think we'll probably make that experience a little bit more user-friendly for people. So we're really giving you the blocks to build whatever you want to build, right? And allowing it to be whatever you want to be. But we're not putting onto our users this enormous responsibility for understanding how to use these JavaScript frameworks, how to, you know, exactly, you know, create instances of contracts, all these sort of things that are rather complicated to do when using Ethereum. So we're trying to make that a lot simpler.
That's great. Simply great. Listen, are you collecting like informations on which contracts are being browsed, or is that an idea of yours to add a browser so that people can actually already like go through the most used smart contract and for which purpose? So in order to make like the onboarding even so you can also have like little taglines. Okay, this is a smart contract for wrapping Ethereum. Okay, informations and link to the explain. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we're thinking about doing is creating kind of like a DappHero University.
Nice.
One thing that's really missing is like education has always been great in the Ethereum community around Ethereum. It's very decentralized, however, and a lot of it is organized by Google. So what you actually end up having is for people who are new to Ethereum in 2020, it can actually be a very frustrating experience to get started, right? Because if you Google tutorial, how do I build on Ethereum? You might get something from 2017 that doesn't work anymore. you get all these different types of examples that may not be relevant, or they will do screenshots of interfaces that no longer exist with products that don't do what they used to do. So we think there's a necessity to build out a sort of like educational component as well. You know, as I mentioned before, our docs, I'm really proud of our docs, and, you know, I totally underestimated how hard it is to like write good docs. Basically, we want to like push that forward. For example, in the current version of the DappHero interface, you saw we did have the ability to connect to existing smart contracts. We will be removing that. And you'll have to bring your own smart contract. Basically, you will have to say which smart contract you want to connect to. The reason for, as I sort of mentioned, is we like smart contracts, you know, especially like in DeFi smart contracts, when they have bugs or errors, they get changed. And we don't want to really be responsible for, you know, making sure that all the ecosystem is continuing to be what it says it's going to be. But that does mean that we do have to help educate our users so they know how to find what they're looking for, right? So in our documentation, we want to give examples of where to find this information. And then maybe down the road, we might actually create our own contracts that we will know about, right? So we may do our own sort of like NFT minting contract or facility, our own, you know, personal token type of facility, our own, you know, sample DAO. You know, one of the things that we would like to do down the road is create a much simpler DAO, something even simpler than Moloch DAO, for example, that just allows people to like coordinate decision making, but maybe not necessarily as related to like sums of money, right? Because DAOs can be really interesting for things like clubs, but maybe you don't not really interested in staking, $1,000 just to decide who's going to like carpool, this week, right? So there's a lot of things that we think we're going to have to build out for users to give them like a really smooth experience. But we're going to be really guided by how people end up using DappHero and what their sort of feedback is.
Nice. Thank you. Fanny, do you have more questions? Is there any questions from the watchers? Let's see how many people are watching also on the live stream. Okay.
I do have a question for you, Dennison, because it's a very new project. Bless you, Matteo. It's a very new project as well, and you did you win no, it was already developed at East Denver, right? Where did you develop?
Yeah, so we launched the first version of the alpha at ETH Denver, okay. And it was a big success. Something like 40% of all builders at ETH Denver used DappHero in some way or another. We had 25% of all builders used DappHero, 40% of all the winners used DappHero, and then 60% of all the social impact winners used DappHero. And something that was really exciting is one of our winners from ETH London actually went on to win the Blockchain for Social Impact Accelerator hackathon that finished last week. So they also were using DappHero. ETHTurin.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we have them. So they're mentoring in our Discord channel.
Awesome. They're awesome. It's an awesome team.
Yeah,
they have a great idea. Right, what they're doing is really, really extremely cool. And actually, we see a lot of this in terms of like when you talk about like who our users are. We see a lot of people coming to blockchain with creativity, not necessarily like technical skills when it relates to blockchain. And when I say technical skills, there's a lot of developers out there who are proficient professional developers, but for whom Web3 is very confusing, right? Like Web3 as a developer doesn't always, and I'm not just talking about the Web3 library, but I'm talking about like the sort of Web3 experience, doesn't always behave the way people expect it to behave. And one of the things that we believe at DappHero is that to be able to build with blockchain, you shouldn't need to be an expert in blockchain, right? When you add Stripe to your website, you don't have to be an expert in banking, interbank, communication protocols, right? When you add email to your website, you don't have to be an expert in, email relay servers, right? But currently with blockchain, to add blockchain to your website, you need to be an expert in blockchain. And for every feature that you want to add to your website, you have to be an expert in that feature, right? So if you're going to add something like IPFS, you to put it in a product, you have to be an expert in IPFS. And we believe that this is a really big ask of people, and it's a really big ask of developers, because for us, blockchain feels inevitable, like it's the future and it's, you know, just obvious. But for a lot of people, a lot of developers and a lot of builders, blockchain is just the software at the top, you know, it's the toolkit at the top of product hunt of the week, right? It's just another cool thing to check out. And if they come and it's just incredibly difficult to get started with, right? They'll leave, right? They're not going to stick around for something that doesn't immediately show them that, hey, there's a value in here that I'm going to use. So I believe that we're losing a lot of developers to the sort of like complexity and sort of the difficulty in having that magic first moment. And we believe that DappHero gives that to a lot of, we call them blockchain adjacent developers. People who are developers, but they want to just use blockchain in one piece of their project, right? It's not necessarily their whole project. And today, to add blockchain to any project, the blockchain part kind of has to be the whole project. And that's a bit much.
Nice.
So how many people are working on DappHero now?
Right now we have about 4 or 5. So we have a couple contractors, and then we are raising right now, although, you know, the market isn't awesome because of the whole coronavirus thing. But we're doing well. We're building really fast. I just got like a coronavirus notification on my thing, and so I'm like, every day it's just like, it's worse.
They can hear you. You just said the word.
Yeah, exactly. I just said the word. They're like, hey, you want to hear about it? So in May, we'll be releasing V2 of our alpha. We've rebuilt our engine again to make it faster and more performant. We're starting to add more of the user requested features. This is actually a really difficult product to build. There are so many different Web3 providers. Like, we talk about simplifying the process for developers and builders and just regular users. And so we take on a lot of that, like the friction of like figuring out how things in the ecosystem work. And it's kind of crazy sometimes, you know, so every day that we're working on it, we really can feel why we're working on it. Because when we get frustrated, we're like, oh yeah, once we solve this, we'll have solved it for everybody who uses DappHero, right? So there's a, you know, we're really inspired and we keep working on it. And in May, we'll have a new interface as well as a new core engine. And then we'll start to move towards a more of a regular process. We're going to try and interact with our community more, hopefully give sort of like a development roadmap that people can comment on, sort of like nightly updates and like where the software is at now. Okay, maybe not nightly. I take that back. All right. Weekly. We'll try and do weekly. And then it'll be more of a sort of like a public process moving forward, what we're doing and where we're at. And yeah.
For someone who wanted to, I mean, this talk is being recorded, so it will, you know, just work as a standalone, and we can share it around. And I wanted to share it around with some people. For someone who wanted to explore easily the available smart contracts that can be easily implemented in DappHero, is there any archive library that you would recommend where there are descriptions and lists?
So you can interact with any Ethereum smart contract with DappHero. So you're not limited.
Right, yeah.
So we don't currently have a list just because it's any smart contract. Mm-hmm. Currently, in the current version, it does need to be a publicly deployed smart contract, although we will be supporting private chains in the future. So we don't really need a list. The only limitation at the moment in dealing with smart contracts is we don't currently support events. And we have a pretty good reason for that. Events are a really great way of getting cheap storage in smart contracts. But from the user, sort of like the front end user, they're not very scalable. So essentially what happens with events is the longer your contract exists on the network and the more popular it is, if you're using events directly in the browser, the slower the process, the slower the application gets, because your browser actually has to go through the blockchain and request from the node all these events. So they're not scalable, and we don't want to give our users a feature that actually sort of will come back to bite them, right? If you build something that's successful and you build it on events, your product will pretty quickly become unusable.
Yeah.
So there are some great alternatives to that, things like the graph. We're exploring giving users access to the graph. We will be having your contract instance available to users in the browser. So you're still able to use jQuery to query events if that's something that's important to you. So we are working on that to sort of try and find like a good balance on that. But otherwise, you can do anything you want with DappHero in terms of connecting to smart contracts. And if you need some sort of custom logic, you can just add jQuery to, the ETHTurin guys have a great example. They use jQuery on their product. During the hackathons, we saw people building on DappHero using React. So they would basically use React to do their app, but rather than deal with trying to, handle state for Web3, et cetera, they just import DappHero, and then they just use it directly inside of React, of the HTML layer. So yeah, the list of available smart contracts is all the smart contracts.
Thank you. Very useful. I think we can wrap it up, Fanny. What do you say? If there's nothing to add.
Well, I always have something to add. But yeah. Well, no, I still want to add what I wanted to add. Come on. No, I think this is so. Dennison, you should look into one project that was we did this like way to show like art, like NFTs on a smart TV, and it's called Token Cast. And I don't know if you looked at it, but it was.
I think I'm familiar with it. It's like a Raspberry Pi based project.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I think it's very cool.
So, but like, see, I'm not like a builder, right? Like, I'm not a hardware person, and literally, I mean, it's a friend of mine. So we're like, hey, like, there's really no way to like show your NFTs like on a TV or like a screen in your house, like your pictures on iCloud. Yeah. And so I was like, oh well. On the side project, but it's like. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do it. This is great because I totally need that. I bought the Raspberry Pi and then I never built it because I'm like, what am I kidding? Like, I can't do that. Like, it's just like, I don't know. Like, so, but it's exactly about like this last link that is like the hardest to get. And that makes you do crazy things. Like when you think about it, like I should never have bought a Raspberry Pi. I mean, now I'm very proud to own a Raspberry Pi for like Model 4, but it's not the way it should be. So I think this is I'm very bullish on that, and the fact that I followed like the comments after hackathons about DappHero, and some people were saying, wow, like this is I've been participating to hackathon for like a few years, and that the first time I've been able to build something. So so just seeing something like a comment like that like shows that there is definitely like a need for it. So it's it's a great tool. So so we'll definitely make sure to communicate it. It's the thing with the virtual event. It's also like people are on very different time zones, so it's sure. Harder to be synchronous. Everybody in the same place. But thanks a lot, Dennison, for making the time. And
my pleasure.
It was great. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Thank you,
everyone.